Welcome to the Wing Life Podcast, where we talk about wing foiling and the lifestyles of those who enjoy this great sport.
All right. Hey, Gunnar. Super stoked to talk to you today. Thanks for joining me on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for the opportunity.
Nice. Did you get any wind today living in the beautiful place that you live in?
No, unfortunately not. We've had great swell for the last week. It's been really, really good, but it's been really light, and like the last 2 days, it's been glassy. Perfect for surfing, but not great. Especially I've got stuff to test. So.
You can't
Waiting
test
for wind
right
at the
now.
moment. So yeah.
Nice. For those at home, where are you? Where are you living?
I live on Fuerteventura. That's one of the islands from the Canary Islands. Canary Islands are like this archipelago that's off the coast of Africa that, however, belongs to Spain. It's sort of volcanic islands and so on, and we're right in the middle of the trade wind area. So it's super windy and it's nice beaches and reasonably warm water all year round. So if you do water sports, it's basically paradise.
Yeah, I guess so. For those who aren't familiar with it, when's the best season for wind and waves and all that kind of thing?
Our windy season, the trade wind season, is from April till September. In that time, when you come down, you're pretty much 100% wind guarantee, depending on what spots and what wind directions there are. There's always somewhere that's pretty windy. And then from October until beginning of April, it's the sort of North Atlantic wave seasons, because we get a lot of the storms and they push that groundswell through. So, then we're pretty much surfing every day, or in my case, surfoiling.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. For people of ranging, I know we're a wingfoil podcast, but a bunch of everybody kites and windsurfs too. So are there spots on the island that are beginner friendly? Is it a lot more advanced, like some other islands and stuff like that?
We have a good mix. That's why I actually love living here, especially also working here for testing gear. It's because we've got perfect beginner spots. We got really advanced spots. We've got super dangerous and gusty spots. So we can pretty much, there's something for everybody here.
Okay.
In the summer, let's say, especially for winging and kiting, it's really good for beginners because consistent wind and there's no swell. So almost all spots, the water's flat. So it's great to learn, especially for winging. In the winter, It gets a little bit more difficult finding pure beginner spots without waves, because they're, like I said, with the swell, it can get a bit choppy and a bit wavy. But there are still spots like in the south, like in Fuerteventura, where they have the World Cup, where it's practically flat all the time.
Okay. And what kind of winds are you normally getting there in the summertime?
In the summer, like I said, we have the full range. Up in the north where I live up in the north near Corlejo. We have unaccelerated trade winds, so it's typically between 15 and 25 knots every day, depending if it's northeast or north. And down in the south, it's ballistic, because they get a double Venturi effect, like the wind gets pushed through the island and sort of into a valley and then out again. And there every day it's 25 knots plus gusts of 40, sometimes 50, depending on how warm it gets.
Hey, windy time. That's sweet.
Yeah.
Not bad. So how did you, where were you living before, and when did you move to Fuerteventura?
I was living in the UK beforehand. I mean, my history is really long. I mean, half German, half Chinese, and unfortunately born in Iran. My parents were there, and then grew up in Indonesia. And then I went to study in the UK, up in Manchester.
Oh, cool. What did you study?
Till computer engineering and accounting and finance.
All right. Okay. So how did you go from accounting and all that kind of thing into wind? How'd that happen?
I mean, I've been flying and building kites since I'm 10 years old. I've always been full on, I love stuff that flies. So my older cousin got me into kite flying, bought me first plastic kite and stuff. Just fell in love with that, and ever since then I've been into sort of just flying kites, building kites, and just doing stuff like that. And when I was studying in the UK, I started power kiting, and then kite buggy racing and stuff like that. And that, like around 1999, automatically evolved into going on the water with those kite buggy kites with like wakeboards and surfboards. And it's sort of how I got into kite surfing. And then as soon as I really got into kite surfing, I realized I don't like doing it in the cold. And I saw ad. I saw an ad for a kite surf instructor, which was the Flag Beach Center here in Fuerteventura. They were looking for a kite surf instructor who spoke German and English. So I was like, that's perfect for me. I'm not staying in the UK over the winter. And I took the job down here. And then I fell in love with the place and pretty much decided to come back the next year and then stayed.
Oh, wow. Okay. Then you picked up, were you doing training and then picked up other side work kind of thing? Or was the training enough, or the teaching enough to sustain you?
I was working full-time as a kite instructor for Flag Beach. It was pretty busy back then. And did that for a good few years. But also around that time, I mean, even starting 2002, I was already sort of getting sponsorship deals with Whippica back then, and then Brina, and then in 2004, that's essentially when I stopped teaching, and then basically I got my first big sponsor with Peterlin Kiteboarding. They were basically sponsoring me from then on. I could stop being a kite instructor full time.
So competing on tour, all that kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what were your favorite events when you were competing? And disciplines?
Coolest events, like the one here down in the south back then, that was sort of like highlight because it was a huge event, big party and so on, also together with the windsurfers. And then the events in Cabarete were awesome. Like awesome. And then of course the World Cup in Germany, the St. Peter-Ording World Cup, that was just amazing. Because that's huge like setup, and like it's also like an expo for all the gear, but also massive concerts, and the spot's really good too. So that's probably like the biggest event of the calendar. So excellent.
When did you get into like Kitefoil racing? Because I know that was your pretty big thing for you.
Yeah, I mean I've been racing like in competitions like since the beginning. Like let's say I started with kite buggy racing, and then 2005, the Peak area had their first border cross, so I basically competed in the border cross, which was called, I think it was the Kite Cross Tour. Came second in that overall, and then we started like the normal kiteboard racing started around 2007, and I was heavily into that. And then when I basically went from Peterlin to Fly Surfer, and basically 2010 I became German champion for like normal kiteboard racing, and did that for a while. But around 2010 also, I got my hands on my first Carafino hydrofoil.
Oh, yeah. I talked to Georgia Delta about that. Yeah. Yeah, he was talking about Carafino.
This is really cool. It's really badly made, and it's not working that well, but it's really cool. So, I mean, I had that for a while, and then that broke very quickly. And so me and the shaper I was working with my boards, we decided to essentially start building our own here. And then
back in 2010
from there. Yep.
Oh shit! Just step back a little bit into your kiteboard racing. Like what kind of speeds are you hitting back then?
Back then we were, compared to now, like super slow. When we had the big tanker boards, like the tri-fin, basically windsurf boards with the kites. We were maxing out around 25 knots, 27 knots in races. That was like really fast back then. And that was like when hydrofoiling came around, it was already like, hey, look, on my little free ride hydrofoil, I'm already faster than the most expensive kite racing gear we have at the moment. So we already knew where that was going. And actually, luckily, we went into the Olympics with the big tri-fin boards, but luckily we got kicked out again. Because if we hadn't been kicked out, we wouldn't have started foiling as quickly. Because when we were in the Olympics, there was a lot of pressure not to introduce any new gear, because we don't want like a lot of evolution like in an Olympic class. At least back 2012, there was definitely, please don't unpack your hydrofoil at the Olympic trials. We just don't want people to see that. So it was actually good that when we got kicked out again at the end of 2012, and then 2013, Like people like Johnny, me and so on were like pushing it a bit more. And then people realized that, oh, these hydrofoils are a lot quicker upwind than any of the other gear.
Yeah.
I think Johnny's first race, he couldn't even jibe or tack, and he still beat everybody.
Holy shit. Yeah.
So it was like, and then everybody knew, it was like, oh, okay, this is over with these massive unhand lead boards, and hydrofoiling is going to be the future. And then also with the foil kites coming in, we were basically being able to push the low end of the sport really like far down. So sailing in like 5-6 knots at full speed was all of a sudden possible. With the tri-fin boards, it was, even with like a 21 square meter like fly surfer kite, in 6 knots we're extremely slow. But with the foils, it's like, 20 knots plus, and then reaching of 30 knots. So, and like nowadays, if you're like the top 10 in the Olympics, they're all reaching speeds close to 40 knots in the strong wind races.
So it's 40 knots. So you're nearing like almost 80 to 100 kilometers an hour, almost ish.
Not 100, but it's
yeah,
close
but
to
80
70. It's like 78
80
kilometers an hour, something like that. Some of the races.
Yeah, it's getting quick. How have you seen the evolution from like your Carafino that you broke to, like, how did you guys start at the start then? Like, you obviously just went in and just looked at the things that were breaking and tried to make them better.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me was essentially making something that was a bit more higher quality and more durable. And
all right,
there wasn't even any real carbon in the original Carafino. So we're like, okay, we gotta make something proper, and then looking at a bit of actual hydrodynamics a little bit and how to make it. But the biggest thing that at least we did at Magma was we wanted to get rid of the T-bar. We were like, this is a pain in the ass to travel with, having the mast and the fuselage connected. It doesn't fit in the board bag well. So the first thing we did was, right, how do we split the mast from the fuselage section? So
all right,
we're the first foil brand back then, of 3, I think, existed back then, that essentially went, no, we're separating the mast from the fuselage, which will make it easier to basically travel and also have different fuselage lengths to experiment.
Do you have any of those originals on you?
No, unfortunately not.
Damn, that'd be fun
we were
to see.
selling them. We were selling them faster than we could build them. So every one I made for myself was sold within like weeks of them being made, which it annoys me because I usually try to keep, like, I have a lot of my old board prototypes. They're all in my garden, but on the foils side, like, yeah, from the really early days, we don't have any of those first prototypes left over, which is a bit of a shame.
Oh dear. So how did you then do that first initial connection with fuse and mast?
Actually, not so much different from what it is nowadays.
No?
We took essentially the concept from the Tuttle box, sort of about having it sort of a tapered plug on the mast that would basically slot into the fuselage.
Okay.
What we did a little bit different was that we had a sort of rounded radius on the front, which means like the front screw wasn't holding as much pressure. It basically could be held in almost just with one screw in the back. Yeah, it was a bit bulky, that system, but it worked pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the front wings, pretty much like standard sort of front wing detached from the fuselage as normal, 3 screws, and then stabilizer in the back, same thing.
How'd you tune the stabilizer? Because I know we had Levitas. Levitas is this really cool screw system for fine tuning their tail and whatnot. What do you think about that? How did you guys tune yours back then?
We tuned with shims back then when we were actually designing and testing. That screw system that Levitas uses is something that was used on, there was a brand called Spots. I'm not sure if you know them. Spots were the first sort of really good racing foil brand. He really knew what he was doing, and he had this really cool thing, and he came up with a system to basically, with the screws, trim the stabilizer for different conditions. Okay. So that was like pretty cool. It had its own problems and so on. It's a system that you don't really want to use as a normal rider. Essentially, as a normal rider, you essentially want, here's your foil, it works. You're not really messing around too much with your stabilizer angles. Actually, stabilizer changes a lot. That's why a lot of people can get it wrong. There's also quite a lot of misconceptions of actually how the stabilizer works, especially in regards to pitch stability of the overall foil system and essentially what's happening with the shifting of the center of gravity. So
we can go into it.
Probably the easiest way to sort of explain it is like when I design a foil, the first thing I actually tune in is not the stabilizer. The first thing I tune in is the front wing, because everything sort of is based off that. So if I will basically get the front wing flying basically straight, because essentially the front wing is always going to fly at its assigned angle of attack. Every profile has got an angle of attack where it works. Usually that's between sort of 0, -1, and +1, depending on what profile we're using. And then once you figure that out and you've got your board in a decent delta with it, I mean, some people like it completely parallel. I mean, I prefer a little bit more like nose up. But essentially you have that working, and then you can start working on trimming the stabilizer. Typically I use a very sort of standard neutral stabilizer when I'm trimming in the front wing, and then I start worrying about the little bit of extra fine tuning on the stabilizer.
Okay.
Because once you got the front wing more or less flying reasonably stable, that's when you can sort of add a bit more extra pitch stability, you can add a bit more speed, making the whole thing a bit looser by changing the angles. But also overall, you can get a better result by actually designing the proper stabilizer for that front wing.
Okay.
Like there's a good angle of attack for your stabilizer too, from its profile where it's working at its best to compensate the pitching moment from the front wing, and you're pitching your roll. And once you sort of over shim it or under shim it, you're always sacrificing something. You're getting pitch unstable or like way too pitch stable, or it kicks up too hard and things like that. And so I'd rather try to get the stabilizer to work really well with the front wing, sort of by having the right design, not so much over having to put too much angle of attack change into it.
Oh, okay. All right, that makes sense. And now, did you learn all of this stuff as you went through your writing, like when you started Magma and stuff back 2010? So you've had, 13 years, 14 years now of just experience of building. That's how,
a lot of trial and error and a lot of YouTube videos. And I had to teach myself CAD, CFD, everything pretty much. I mean, I knew from building kites, how to make things fly and how things are balanced in flight. But I had to basically figure out how to basically design and build these things. And especially when started trying to go into manufacturing, it opened a whole new Pandora's box of things that needed to be learned. So,
wow. Like, is there standard software that you guys use, or is it just something that you kind of tried to tinker and find?
I mean, most people are using essentially still trial and error, and there's some there's like some sort of like software like Dave K from he used to work for Airush. He sort of is designing his own sort of OEM sort of foil software, for example, and people are getting into that. But especially in the beginning, we didn't have any reference. So I actually started working with a like RC model software just to basically get the basic geometries and the profiles sorted out. But then I'd actually have to take all that. I'm not building an RC plane. I had to take all that into like a CAD program like SolidWorks and draw it properly. So we could make molds and so on.
Okay. And where'd you get all your molds and all that kind of stuff done?
Back in the day, that was a pain in the ass. Back in the day, that was we'd have to send the files to Germany, and then we'd have a guy there who basically cut them, and then I'd have to fly to Germany, pick up this massive block of MDF or aluminum,
no way,
get back to Fuerteventura so we could laminate them. Nowadays, it's a lot easier. Over there, I've got like a massive 3D printer. Okay. So I 3D print the molds now, and I build my prototypes back in my garage.
Oh wow, no way! You lay all your stuff.
It's really, yeah. It's really quick. So they take the mold takes a big, like for a front wing, like a meter span front wing, it takes 3 or 4 days to print the mold. And then laminating, if you discount the drying times, laminating is like 2-3 hours total.
Using pre-preg carbon or using like...
No, just hand layup.
Hand layup? Okay. All right.
Yeah. The problem of living here on the Canaries is you can't get any of this stuff down here. Like pre-preg needs to be refrigerated and so on. So yeah, we can't get that down here. Plus, my house isn't big enough for an autoclave, which basically it's an oven, which cures the pre-preg.
Yeah.
And yeah, in the future maybe. But for now, this normal hand layup with a decent carbon that works. And the turnaround time, essentially, like I said, within a week, I can test a prototype.
Oh, no way. Okay.
So
beautiful.
Yep.
So what happened? So where did you go from Magma to where you are now at Indiana?
Yeah. Magma, we were pretty successful in the beginning, but then we sort of made the mistake when sort of foiling started taking off a little bit. We decided we wanted to do mass manufacturing. And then we got involved with the wrong factory, which basically ended that project very quickly. Basically bankrupted us. And so there I swore I'm not going to spend any of my own money doing this stuff. And then at that time, I was working for Flysurfer as a team manager and so on, and was racing full time. So yeah, just spending my time basically racing, developing new foils, just basically for myself and trying to sort of do something. And then I actually started doing review videos for foils back then, which was actually fairly nice, successful, and so on. And sort of when sort of the Kitefoil racing started, and then the normal racing sort of ended, I took a few years off and I started my own shop and stuff like that. So wasn't in that much into the sort of the development side of foiling at the time. And then surf foiling sort of came about.
Hey.
And that's how I got involved with Indiana. So around 2014, 2015, started subfoiling, surf foiling, and things like that. And started having the big foils and so on. So, this is really cool. And then in 2016, the boss from Indiana was on Fuerteventura for a holiday and sort of wanted a kitefoil lesson. So I taught him the kitefoil. Yeah. And then he was like, yeah, this is cool. And so on. Like, yeah, would you like to, develop a board, like a subfoil board with us and so on?
Oh,
so
no way.
I was like, yeah, sure. And then worked with their shaper at their time, Bitman, and then we had our first like sort of subfoil board. And then they came around a year later and like, yeah, we've got a few of these like China foils. We're thinking about getting into sort of foiling also like for the brand. And I was like, no, I can actually design you a foil that's a lot better than this OEM China thing. And they're like, okay, let's do that. And then sort of that's how that sort of happened.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
So I was working freelance for them all the time until last year.
All right.
So I was still basically being a pro rider for different brands. And then the thing with North was happening and was working with North and so on for a while. And then when that ended, essentially, I started working full time for Canada. January last year.
Okay. Now, like I just heard of Indiana, and there's a lot of other people out there that haven't heard of them yet. So where is the brand based out of?
The brand is based out of Zurich in Switzerland. It actually started out as a skateboarding brand. If you're sort of an old like slalom windsurfer or longboard, not windsurfer, a slalom skateboarder or like longboard skateboarder from, let's say, late 90s, early 2000s, the name might say something. Actually, one of my first skateboards, which I actually still have in the garage, is from Indiana. So I actually knew the brand. I was like, oh, it's you guys. Cool. So they started as a skateboarding brand. The CEO, Maurus Strobel, he's actually like really successful, like sort of slalom skateboarder. So, so him and his partner started Indiana. So they had the skateboards and so on. And then when the stand-up paddling started, they were like, oh, we want to do this. We can get into it, especially Switzerland I mean, it's a paradise for stand-up paddling. You got so many lakes near the big cities and so on, so it's quite natural for them to get into it. And
cool. Okay.
that's how they sort of came out. Yeah, that's our
Oh,
boss.
no
That's
way.
Maurus in the showroom.
All right.
Yeah, we have a really cool office directly on the lake. Like if you scroll down, there's a picture of Nikki, our German sales guy. Like that's sort of the lake there. Got like the little dock starting platform right off the office, out of the office door practically.
Oh, sorry. Let me scroll up here.
Yeah.
For everybody just listening, we're just taking a look at their website, paddlesurf.com. Oh yeah, that does look pretty cool. That's right in the back of your office.
So basically that's the main pier, and if you look straight behind that, there where all the boats are parked, that's the Indiana headquarters. So.
Oh wow, man, that looks beautiful. Yeah.
Yep.
It's got this beautiful little bay, or I guess not. It's not really a bay. It's more of a. What are those things called when you put all your boats?
It's basically it's a small harbor.
Small harbor. That's the word I was looking for. Okay, you got a little dock, and
you got to be a bit careful not to hit any sailboats when you're pumping around.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Cool little spot though. Okay, so they approached you. You started working for them. How do you like that so far? It's your first year, I guess, full time.
Yeah, it's full time. I mean, I've been making foil boards for them and foils for a while. So.
All right.
No, it's great because it's a small brand, so very progressive, small team of people to work with. So yeah, there's a lot of cool new things coming. Soon. Like I said, I've been spending a lot of time, especially this last year, just building and testing and just trying to make cool stuff. So, we're going to be introducing most of that stuff, I think, in 2 weeks at the boat show in Düsseldorf.
So can you share any of it with us now? Where have you made those big kind of improvements, or where do you see things going?
Well, we've been working on sort of a new, sort of, at least for us, sort of a more high performance system where everything's just a bit more streamlined. So for all the new foils that are coming out at Indiana, they're going to look a lot nicer. They're going to be faster. The whole system is going to be a little bit more integrated. Where come up sort of look a more monocoque system where the front wing is integrated with the fuselage. Something you've seen from like F1, for example. Well, it's very integrated with that. We've got new masts that we've been working on, thinner masts with high modulus carbon, just essentially trying to push the performance side on that thing. I've been working on a full range of new front wings for winging and surf foiling and downwinding and so on. So that's why I'm really hoping for wind now, because
yeah, it's time.
Foil, which I really want to get on the water. So
nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's exciting stuff. Yeah, I tried AFS's foil. They're mono. And it was pretty sweet actually. But here, back on your website a little bit. So you got inflatable stops. Sorry. You got composite. You got surfboards. You got foil boards. You got foils. You got wings, paddles, accessories, ranging from leashes to fins to a bunch of. And then then you got some outlet stuff. Do you want to give people at home a quick overview?
Yeah. So, I mean, Indiana started basically as a stand-up paddle brand. So, obviously, we have the whole stand-up paddle side, the surfboard side. Also quite heavily into sort of the indoor surfing as a Swiss brand. There's quite a lot of indoor waves in Switzerland.
Oh, okay.
So, we're quite heavily involved in that. And then, again, being a Swiss brand, wake surfing and stuff like that, also quite a big thing. And then on the foiling side, we've pretty much got full range of inflatable boards, hard boards. We've got 3 ranges of hard boards, or more wave-oriented, high-performance stuff that I design, and the Wittmann designs sort of the flat water, sort of lake-orientated wing boards. And now I've got 3 or 4 ranges of foils to cover everything. We were one of the first brands to sort of do really big foils for pump foiling, for dock starting. A couple of years ago, we had the 1100P, which was the first one, which was massive and thick profiles so that anybody could just jump off a dock and pump.
Oh, sweet.
So, and especially in Switzerland, pump foiling in Switzerland is just massively taken off. It's insane how many people do it there. Yeah, I mean, they got a lot of lakes and a lot of docks and not a lot of restrictions in that respect.
Okay. Now,
Yeah,
I talked to
for
a
example,
couple guys, and they're saying that like designing a good pump foil is actually pretty hard.
yeah, it is.
Okay. Can we
Like
go into
when I first
why?
designed that first one, like my computer almost burnt down doing the CFD
Hell yeah.
simulation. Because we hadn't done anything that big before. I mean, but however, nowadays, that's it. Not a lot has changed in the last 3 years. It's gotten a lot more streamlined. They've gone a bit more to sort of the performance thing. But nowadays we sort of know what we're doing, what we need for pump foils. You know, what's harder now? We've got really good team riders, like these 13-year-old kids, which are like, now we want to go super fast. We need a super small, like 800 square centimeter pump foil, and we want to do backflips and all this stuff. So
yeah,
it's a bit that is a bit more difficult because it's stuff that I can't test anymore. It's gotten to a point where it's like,
oh, you need some kids.
I'm gonna build it. I'm gonna kite with it. I'm gonna wing with it. Tell me what it's like when you pump this, because like I can't dock start something that small. Yeah, but the next generation, they're just kicking ass on this stuff.
Well, if there were 3 things to build a good pump foil, what would they be? What's required to make a good one?
The first thing is durability. People really underestimate, especially on the bigger ones, how much pressure these big front wings with the profiles that are on there create on all the connections. You will see, especially if you got thinner aluminum masts or normal carbon fuselages, you can break those fairly easily. Dock starting. You also have quite a lot of ground contact or contact with the dock. So the first thing is trying to make these things as durable as possible. That's like when you're designing them, you're already thinking about that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is essentially efficiency and glide. You want something that once it's up and flying will stay up and flying easily, so you don't have to put so much of your own power into it. So basically you don't have to pump like a crazy person all the time. You can glide and relax a little bit. Yep. And then on the third thing is trying to keep the thing fun, because it's actually very easy to make a massive front wing that just goes straight. Yeah. But once people learn, they don't turn. That's where there are like some like massive things like other like that are designed for like long distance pumping. Yeah, for example, like the Kitefoil, which is amazing for just pumping ages. But that's all you really can do. You go straight line, you pump for a long time. But especially people that are like, I'm not into like pumping across the lake. I just want to like do a few rounds and I want to carve hard and I want to like pop a little air or something like that. So you're still trying to design, especially now, foils that are still a bit more versatile and fun.
All right. So a lot of that comes down to you trial and error, but you have an idea of how the foil is going to perform and you create that, send it as a proto. They let you know and then you can make tweaks as you go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So you're doing boards there, foils there. Who's designing wings? Because I saw you guys had wings as well.
At the moment, we have a deal with Ozone. So basically having Indiana branded Ozone wings. So at the moment, selling the fluxes and the flies. So that's the way it is at the moment. We're always contemplating, maybe coming up with our own wings, but that's another product which is just a lot of stuff to do at the moment. Our catalog's fairly full. So, at the moment, we don't really have our own wings, but we have the Ozone wings.
Out of all the disciplines that you've done over the years, like what's your favorite one? If you had like half an hour, for example, what would you go do?
That's a hard question to
answer.
For me, I have it changes all the time. I have weeks where I'm like totally back into sort of kite foiling and just kiting. I'm like, man, I'm loving this. And then and then I've got weeks. I'm like, no, then you got really good conditions for winging. And I'm like, I love winging. You know, you got like 2 meter, 3 meter waves, like howling wind. I was like, no, I love this. And then there's other times where I'm like, oh no, it's super glassy. Like this last week, it's super glassy, surfoiling, subfoiling. It's so amazing. And at the moment, the flat water paddling, that's also like something I'm really into. Like I look forward to I go out every morning, and we'll just do an hour of just flat water paddle ups now on the downwind boards.
Okay. How do you
really
find
good
those?
for the cardio.
Yeah.
No, it's great. It's good exercise. It's hard as hell. So it keeps you fit, and for me, it really improved my paddling. Because I mean, most of my life I've been a sort of mediocre stand-up paddler, even though I've been doing it for close to 15 years. But in the last 2 years of like properly getting like flat water paddle ups with the downwind gear, it's been like my level has really exploded. So I'm a way better paddler just through figuring out how to get up on a foil just paddling.
Like I've seen a bunch of people do it. What was the hardest thing for you on there?
Finding the right timing, essentially. Because once we had the boards, we're like, okay, this should be a lot easier than it was before. So I mean, flat water paddle ups. I made a video for like Eric Terrien, a friend of mine here, like back in 2016. He was already paddling up on bog standard subfoil gear back then. So now we've got really easy boards to do it, which you have to put in a lot less energy. But the biggest important part is that paddle technique and timing. So you have to be able to, first of all, paddle a board that's that narrow. I mean, the board I use for flat water paddle ups 19 inches wide. It's like that. It's no margin for error on that thing. And as I said, if you're slightly off on your paddle technique, you can paddle as hard as you want. You're not getting that combination of you pumping with your feet and accelerating forward with the paddle to get up on the foil. So once you have it, it's like, oh, this is easy. But it took a long time just to figure it out, and a lot of heartbreak, but a lot of lost weight too. So it's all good in that respect.
All right, lean and mean for the camera, and then you're up flying. That's all right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, that's cool. Nice. I was just reading one of the questions here that Frank had wanted me to ask. He was saying specific wingfoil race boards with a deep tuttle box are getting more popular for the IWSA Racing Tour. Any Indiana race boards? Any Indiana race boards you come up with? Oh, I guess he was saying that. Is that something that you guys are gonna kind of do?
No. We have essentially a race board, which is like sort of my pro model, the G Pro 74, the one I was racing on last year. On my own personal one, there's a tuttle box built in, because I was using a mic slab foil. And with racing, you just got to accept that the gear that people are going to be racing on is not the gear you're going to be selling. Because at least with the deep tuttle box, it's not like on tracks where you can just go, all right, for this person, you're going to put the mast in this position and it works fine for them. And they can put whatever foil they want. For the racing foils, you essentially only have two choices at the moment. You've got the Chubanga V3 or you have the mic slab foils. And 90% of the fleets are on the Chubanga. But those already have two different mast positions. So a tuttle box really limits you to that one foil.
Okay.
So it's not sort of something. So it's not just the one foil, but also your personal preference of where you want that position, what rake you want, and what allows you to go fast. So it's more of a custom thing. So if a racer is going to put one of those two foils into his board, he's basically going to put that box in there, get the right tuning, and so on. And that's not something you can do on a production side. Now we can't just go, here's the Indiana race board. It works with the Chubanga. That won't work.
Okay. And do you guys have numbers there of the percentages of what consumers are getting versus just kind of like free ride, pump to race to whatever for your numbers for production?
It's a bit difficult. I mean, we had like the last 2 years has been extremely weird for the industry. We had like massive growth in the first 2 years when winging started, and then sort of everything crashed last year with the situation in Europe. So we're still sort of recovering from that, but can't really talk about like concrete numbers.
No, it's okay. Just like
clear with the boss.
Yeah, like 20% of your people maybe race, and 80% is more just like every average day kind of consumers kind of thing?
On racing, racing, let's say that's about like 1 or 2% of the people who really are into racing. And then, and of those seriously racing, you're talking about like in Switzerland, like 5 or 6 people, you know, in each country, maybe 5 or 6 at the moment. That will grow, especially there's a lot of Olympic interest in winging. So that will grow, but at the moment it's still relatively small. Like on the tour, we've got fleets like 50, 60 people, full international fleets at World Cups. So like I said, it's not a lot of guys at that high level.
Okay, all right.
On a local level where people are running normal gear, there it's pretty good. There you've got a pretty even split between freestyle and race. Yeah, because race is something almost everybody can do. Freestyle in winging has now reached a level where it's practically just for the kids. Like that level is so high now and so risky now. Like you risk injury if you try to keep up at that level, and like break so much gear. So what if I'm 46. I'm out of it.
Yeah, I'm 40 now. My buddy, Max Robinson. He's on tour. He's still our young pup. He's young enough, but I think he's early 30s now. But even he's saying, dude, like I'm the old dog here now. Like everybody, it's insane.
30
like,
for freestyle is old. Like I said, you feel after 30. That's for me. Like I hit 30, and the first thing that happened, I blew out my knee like the next day. It's like the warranty expires when you get to 30, and then you see like Chris and Malo and those guys triple, quadruple rotations, like going double forwards and stuff like that. It's insane,
Yeah. What have you seen there on Fuerteventura? It must be insane watching the kids practice up.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, this is some of the stuff you'll see like at the World Cup level. It's just like you can't even get your head around it anymore. It's just like windsurf freestyle. There's so many rotations, so many tweaks. And with the wing, you got the extra element. They're going super high now. Yeah. Like on the event in Gran Canaria this year, it was insane. I think I saw Benjamin Mai from Duotone. He went for this massive forward that was at least like 8-9 meters high. And landed it clean. When you first saw it on the camera, I was like, he's gonna eat it. He can't. No one can land that, and he landed it. And I was like, oh man, that's insane.
We had a reel. Like Frank put together a reel about that when I was talking to Tom, because we had our first like GWA wingfoil special on the show, and he's like, yeah, he was. I think it was 10 meters, and then rotating fronts, and then landing. Yeah. I think he went up to 14 or 15, but then he was like, dude, there's no way I'm landing this, and he let it go. But it's insane.
No, this is freestyle is not for everybody, and then it's a thing. Sooner or later, it does end. Your body will let you know. And I was super lucky with kite freestyle. Until I hit 30, I was completely injury free.
Oh wow, impressive.
Many times I should have actually, seriously injured myself, but no. But then, as soon as I hit 30, it was like left knee, back. I've had 2 back operations because of kiting. It's just eventually your body just can't take it anymore, especially with the kiting was the boots. We're actually no longer kiting. We're just wakeboarding. So we're landing hard all the time, and that takes a toll. Oh, yeah. And freestyle winging was fun the last 2 years, still keeping up, because essentially we could still land soft. And now it's just like, there's no soft landings anymore. It's all just balls to the wall, full speed, super high, super hard.
So then your foil just sinks in and your board smacks and stuff, obviously.
If you're lucky. I say if you land at a weird angle, you get scorpion and like your back hits the back of your rail because you've been basically bent double, and stuff like that can go wrong. You slip out of the foot strap on a landing. That's a favorite, so your knees are gone. So I had my time for freestyle and so on.
Okay.
I was happy. Like I think 2 years ago, I think I came second next to Jeremy Borlando on the Canarian Championship, and I was like, I can live with
That's
that.
it.
Next year, I'm done.
What kind of moves and stuff were you guys throwing?
Back then, in the first year, basically your standard 360s backs, a lot of like on water tricks. I think back then I was doing a lot of like backwind and sort of my favorite the bat wing thing where you put the
Oh, sweet. Yeah, that thing looks
wing and
awesome.
sort of
to do.
downwind and stuff like that. So basically that was still scored fairly highly in the first year, but then after that it was like, nope, everybody's
It was
got to do
over.
a forward. Everybody's got to go for double or triple rotations. I was like, oh, okay, no.
Yeah, I think they're working on double backies, I think, and stuff. Yeah.
Like I said, that's you get it wrong, you break gear, and it's just like something I'm not willing to go through anymore.
No, it's fair enough. Like, how easy is it to get out? I guess you probably get gear fairly easily there, but it still takes a bit of time.
But even then, at a certain point, it gets expensive.
Yeah,
Rider
that's true.
deals are not what they used to be.
That's true.
So unless you're top in the world, you can't afford to break a board every week, or a
Yeah,
flat.
that's very true.
So
That's very true.
Yeah.
Huh.
that's why
Well-
racing is a lot easier on that respect. You have one set of gear, and that typically survives you at least a whole season. Just
It's a lot
very
easier.
little risk of injury in that sport.
Are you racing in 2024?
I'll be doing a few races, not as seriously as last year. Next year, I'm definitely going to do Defi Wing because I've been missing that every year because we've usually been in conflict with some other event, and I couldn't go because Defi Wind is just basically balls to the wall, go fast, long distance, and in howling wind. So
Up to 50, right?
and
Oh,
there's
shit.
probably going to be like 1,000 wingers there this year, so it's going to be interesting.
Oh, yeah. Like, have you done it as kiter or windsurfer before?
No, like I said, every
No?
time
Okay.
I wanted to go, there's been
Yeah.
something else I had to go to.
All right.
The problem when
love to
you
go.
do tours, they always conflict with each other somehow, so you always have to miss out on some events.
That would be freaking unreal, I think, to go see that. That would be so special.
Yeah, I'm really
Yeah.
looking forward to it. So like this year is the year I'm going to be doing that. I'm still thinking about if I do the Spanish Championship again, try to defend my title there. But it's also just I'm not as motivated as I used to be. Like just to go to like competitions, like even on a national level to win stuff. Doing it for so long. But we'll see. I think that's sometime in March or something. So got time to decide if I want to do it.
Okay. Do you find the work that you're doing now with Indiana is starting to take over that space? Like, is it fulfilling in the same way as competition used to be, kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's especially the last sort of half year where I've been spending a lot of time in the workshop, essentially building foils again. Because in like I said, last 5 years, it's been more about here's the design, have somebody else build it, and go to production, and we'll test that. Where what I'm doing now is a lot more back to the roots, like the hands-on thing, basically building it quickly here, testing it, a lot of sanding, back to the computer, print out the next mold, build the thing again, get back on the water, and really just going back to that rooted sort of R&D work where you're actually discovering new things. So that's been a lot of fun. I'm trying to sort of see where I can push it to. So I'm basically making the foils right exactly how I want them, so make them fast and fun, and especially now with the downwinding, sort of opening that side, something that is fast but still glides. It can be paddled up and like the minimum of like small chop. So
All right, so good low end then is what you're saying, good maneuverability, and then you want to make sure they last a little while. Yeah, I'd love to try that this summer. Like I head out to Vancouver Island every year, and there's a couple spots that I think would be super fun to try that. I was running some older Armstrong foils, which are still kick-ass, but it would be sick to try some mid-aspect stuff, some high-aspect stuff to see what that kind of pump and glide. And because I always find HAs are fun, but I love turning quickly, like snappy, quick little turns, and the HAs don't afford me to do that, but they're for a different use. That's why I was curious about MAs to see how snappy and how quick you could turn with those.
True.
While
But for
still
downwinding, For
Or more, not really
downwinding,
downwinding, sorry. More so just like swell riding downwind.
oh no, then yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
on
Yeah. That's
swell,
more.
your MA
Yeah.
is always going to give you. It depends. It also depends on your ride style. Like if you have a
Okay.
more surfy style, you're like a lower aspect foil is going to give you, like I said, that bit more snappy turn, but you have to ride aggressively. It's like the high aspect foils allow you to essentially take a break and slow down. So more of a longboard style. So you can just sort of
Okay.
let the wave take you, and so you don't have to worry about where you are on the wave and keeping that pressure on. With the lower aspect foils, you also have to keep in mind that because you don't have that glide, that you have to really stay on the face. You have to turn hard. You have to actually surf aggressively, which is really fun, but definitely not as easy.
Well, is there anything else you want to talk about, introduce people to? Kind of covered a few bit things, which has been pretty fun.
Oh, really? I mean, the next sort of step along, you'll see that when the new boards come out, which we'll introduce, like I said, at the boat. Like I can talk about my new Pro models that are coming out, because like
Sure, yeah.
the G Pro 74 that is available now is sort of like your normal standard. I mean, I've had that type of board, that type of design since beginning of wing foiling. Not all the other brands have caught up. It's sort of we're pushing more into, especially for like the light wind side, really narrow, a little bit longer, but really narrow boards. Not quite as long as like your downwind boards now. So I just find the downwind boards, yeah, they'll get you going in light wind with the wing, but they're still massively big. Like even a 7-foot board, in my opinion, is still too long to wing with and have fun. But we're starting to get more, taking that concept into sort of the wing foiling and the surf foiling side. So getting narrow boards around the 17, 18 inch width, but still keeping around 70, 80 liters of volume in it. So basically have really high efficient light wind boards, which however are still nice and light and fun to jump, and also something like for riding like the racing foils, like the 540s and so on, that you can still get going in light wind.
Yeah,
That's
that
something
makes sense.
we're going to see. Yeah. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
almost the other brands have got similar boards coming.
yeah, Keith from KT was saying that his boards are going to get a little bit narrow, a little bit longer. I think everybody is kind of going down that trend right now.
Yep.
Definitely. So just looking at your boards right now, I'm back on your website. What does EU and CH mean?
The EU is European market,
Okay.
sort of the European Union, and the CH is Switzerland, because Switzerland is not part of the EU. So different tax zones. So that's why they have to be two different shops.
Okay. And where can, like, does anybody from North America, kind of anywhere else, where can they buy your gear?
Yeah, actually, there is the US web shop on there. I think you can select US also.
Okay.
Yep, and they don't have all the products, and they have some. There's a warehouse there, so we're starting to grow it there. I mean, the US market for European brands is a bit difficult getting in there. We're still trying to find the right distribution, how to get all that stuff done, so it's still affordable. I mean, we can sell it to the US, but shipping is insane.
Yeah, I heard it's crazy.
Well,
yeah.
So
yeah, I heard it's unreal.
However, it should be easier now. Actually, I just forgot to talk about that. Indiana are essentially changing the concept next year, so we're moving away from shops a little bit. We're just going to keep a few dealers, like sort of as competence centers, while we're pretty much going the route of going direct to customer sales. So we can pretty much take out the middleman in that respect, and like I said, for in like places like the US, be able to sell a bit cheaper and still be competitive. So
yeah,
I think change next year.
I think a few places, even some big shop, like I think I even heard Duoton were thinking about doing something like that. Like some bigger ones are going to start to phase that out.
Exactly.
Yeah, but maintain a few stores. So I guess there's two ways of looking at it. You might put some people out of business, and but I guess it's getting more hyper competitive, I guess, right?
That's true. Like I said, it's been very difficult to sort of keep the margins at a reasonable level to still make money.
Okay.
And then keep the prices cheap for the customers. I mean the industry's never been like very high margin anyway for the brands. So It's gotten more and more difficult, especially with the problems that were around the world for the last 2 years. Especially transporting stuff back and forth is getting extremely difficult, and you have to really keep an eye on, especially shipping. Like somebody buys a board, a lot of that price of that board is just basically shipping the board to the customer nowadays. So,
well, it's good for stuff for people, for all of us to know too, right? Because like it's not all going into your Bali trip at the end of the year. It's definitely a lot of it is going into all this R&D and then shipping big time. Okay, that makes sense. Do you like those trade show events? Like, is that something that you enjoy going to?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
I said especially the boat. It's like you get to meet everybody again. It's basically, I mean, like I said, we're all competitive against each other, but we're still like the industry's small, so we're all friends.
Yeah.
So everybody knows each other. So it's actually really cool to basically catch up with everyone at least once a year. Especially nowadays, there's not so much, let's say, travel interaction going on, at least with like the people who work in the industry. Was before you'd always go, with the team to all the World Cup events and so on. So like nowadays with the managers and the team managers, it's going to like the trade shows. It's actually a big party to meet up with everybody again you haven't seen like in most of the year.
Oh, nice.
And it's
That's
also
cool.
just really good to see essentially how, especially the water sports business sort of fits into the overall sort of, say, it's not water sports, it's like the water business. It's like the boat trade show in Düsseldorf. It's the water sports is like the smallest part, and everything else around it. You've got all the diving and those massive yachts and so on. It's really
fair
cool
enough,
to
yeah.
see those people sometimes come into the water sports and go, yeah, this is really cool. This foiling stuff is cool. And there's still windsurfing going on. And, it's basically getting new customers sort of coming from the other sort of boating industries.
Oh, neat. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of money in those. A lot of money there. A lot of super high expensive. Like my cousin helps sell these boats in Toronto, and they're bringing in like $250,000, $300,000 or $400,000 things for his company, right? That he's helping sell. And now, but we got this new Trudeau tax up here, so now they have to lower the price of their boats because half that they got a big percentage kicking going back to the government now. So they're trying to get cheaper boats because it's cheaper going to the States, which is the exact same problem we're having here with gear, right? Shipping and taxes and all this kind of thing that eats so much of it. So nice. Well, hey, it was pretty fun chatting with you. It was great to meet you.
Thank you for a chance to interview.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, everybody, thanks a lot for joining us tonight. And actually, before we send it off, if people are interested to learn more about Indiana, where should they go?
Visit our website, indianapaddlesurf.com. All the products are on there and all the information is there. We also got quite a lot of useful like information and tutorials and stuff like that on our YouTube channel, Indiana Paddle Surf.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks, Gunnar. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you for the next one.